Hey everyone, today I'm going to be showing you how to RNG Manip static encounters in Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now, static encounters are any gift Pokemon, or they are like legendary encounters like this, or they can even be statics like the Electrodes or Voltorbs that you would see in the power plant, stuff like that. Basically anything that's a Pokemon that you either walk up and talk to receive, or that you walk up and talk to encounter. That is the type of encounters we're talking about here when I refer to static encounter. This is for all official hardware, including GBA, DS, Game Boy Player, and it's also for the 3DS Open AGB firm if you're going to do unofficial. It will not work on emulators, unfortunately, for Fire and Leaf Green. So before we get started, I'm going to go over the things that you're going to need both in-game and out-of-game. In-game, I recommend having a Master Ball for quick capture and calibration, and a Pokemon to help with capture if you're not going to permanently catch it in a Master Ball. And then you should also be saved in front of whatever Pokemon that you're trying to receive. Out of game, I'm going to recommend that you get the Eon Timer 3.0 RC6 is the most up-to-date version as of this recording. And you're also going to need to go to Lincoln's Gen 3 Searcher and Lincoln's Gen 3 Calibration pages. And I'll cover how to use these in a moment to search for your target. The only thing you're going to need other than that is if you want a shiny Pokemon, you're going to need your secret ID. You can get that by RNG manipulating it at the start of the game, or you can find it by catching a shiny via the old-fashioned methods. I have a video on that as well. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. So the first step to doing this manip is actually picking the attributes of our Pokemon. Now, there's two different ways to go about this. There's just going for a quick shiny. You don't really care about stats, you don't care about nature, you just want the sparkles. And then the other way to go about it is searching for specific individual values, maybe for a competitive Pokemon, you want a nature, etc., right? And so even though the end result, the way we'll do the manip is actually going to be the same, picking out the target can be a little bit different. And so I'll cover them separately. The first one I'll cover is how to just get a quick shiny, and then I'll have a timestamp so that you can skip ahead if you want to search for the IVs specifically. Okay. For the quick shiny, we want to go to Lincoln's Gen 3 Calibration page. Now, you're going to want to set your game, so I'm playing on Fire Red English. And then you want to set all of these settings, or leave them the same, rather. But you want to match your in-game settings to those. So, as you can see, the sound refers to mono or stereo. This should be mono. And then the button mode is L = A versus all these other ones. Leave them at the default in the Gen 3 Calibration page. And also leave held button and A button as their default values as well. System, put in whatever you're playing as. There's GBA, Game Boy Player, DS, and 3DS Open AGB firm. I'm playing on a DS. Seeds, shrink that to ±5, and advances, put that at 1000 to 5000. The encounter method is static 1, and then you're going to want to put in your trainer ID and your secret ID. Oops. There we go. And then lastly, for shiny filter, we're going to do star/square. Star versus square shiny is a thing for Sword and Shield that shows, it just determines what the sparkles look like in that game, basically. It doesn't really matter. And then we're going to set the IV calculator species. We technically don't need to do that right now, but I'll set it preemptively. And then we're going to click search or submit. We're not going to touch any of these IV filters down here. So I don't have any shiny, which is fine. So we can expand the seed range to ±15 if we get no results. I'll click submit again. We got nothing again. I can go up to ±20 seeds. Still nothing. If that's the case, you can do a couple of other things. So I don't have anything here, right? So what I could do is I could change the sound button and the L button, just change them up. You'll get different seed results, right? The target seed here will change, that's fine. So I'll hit submit again. And we have a result. So this is going to be our target Mewtwo. It's going to be on advance 1359, and it's going to be on this milliseconds for the seed. And so now what we have to do is set up Eon Timer with these values. And these are the targets and stuff like that. So we'll see in a moment. So in Eon Timer, what we want to do is we want to go to the custom tab, and we want to delete anything that might be there. And then we want to hit the plus button twice. We're going to change the first unit, make sure it's MS. And then the second unit, we're going to do advances. The MS should be from the MS section here. So in the seed section right here. So we're going to copy that. And we're going to paste it into the first target here. So paste that there. Then the second one is the advances. We're going to copy that and we're going to paste that into the advances target. Paste that right there. Perfect. The last thing you're going to want to make sure to do is click the settings cog in EonTimer. Then we're going to go to timer, and the console is what you want to make sure you're doing. If you are on a Game Boy player or a regular Game Boy Advanced, click GBA. If you are on OpenAGB firm or you are on a DS or DS Lite, click NDS-slot 2 and then hit OK. It's very important to do that. Okay, now that we've got our Mewtwo picked out, we can actually move on to the RNG Manip phase. First, I'm going to cover how to do the perfect IVs now. So if you don't want to learn how to do perfect IVs, skip to the actual Manip phase. So if you're looking for more of a competitive Mewtwo, something that's got perfect stats and might also be shiny, we're going to cover how to do that now. And that is going to be in Lincoln's Gen 3 searcher page. So the first thing you want to do is if you want a shiny, you need to put your trainer ID and your secret ID in. So I'm going to do that now. Then for the shiny filter, if you want a shiny, you can put that here as well. So I'm going to do */*. Now for the stats, you should put in whatever you want. I'm going to put in all perfect stats. There is currently no nature selector on this page right now. Hopefully that's going to be added soon. And then you can click submit. This could take a while depending on your computer, by the way, so do not freak out if that's the case. In addition to that, I happen to have a trainer ID and secret ID that give me a 5 IV shiny Pokemon. That is actually not very common. Usually you need to manip that, which is not very easy to do, or you can use glitches to change your secret ID to make it work with this. If you want to learn how to do that, consider checking out my friend Hefe's videos on how to do arbitrary code execution and all other fun glitches in Fire Red and Leaf Green. Okay, so if you get any results, what you can do is click open in the 10 lines. If you get no results at all, you might have to loosen what you're searching for. Sometimes IV spreads don't exist, and sometimes you're not going to have a shiny that is perfect. So you might have to drop the *² thing here, or you might have to like lower the attack from being perfect, but I happen to have 2 different options. And so I will check them both out. So we have this button here that says open in the 10 lines. I'm going to click that. And when you open it in the 10 lines, what you're going to want to do is click the painting seed section here and click the version of Fire Red or Leaf Green that you're playing on. So I'm playing on Fire Red English, but all the languages and revisions should be here. You should also select your console. I'm playing on a DS, but there is GBA, Game Boy Player, DS. Now the DS is for DS and DS Lite, and the Game Boy Player is for official Game Boy Player timings. It is not for the Game Boy interface. And then there's 3DS Open AGB firm. So I'm on a DS. I'm gonna hit submit, and we'll see. So what we can see here is that we have a seed, and then we have this many advances on the seed, and this is the around the total amount of time this RNG Manip will take. So it'll be a 4 minutes, 50 seconds to encounter this Mewtwo. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't like that, that's too long. All right, you could try the other results that you have. So let's see what this timid one looks like. A timid Mewtwo is also pretty good. So again, it's the same process here. So let's do Fire Red English, DS. And we can see the timid Mewtwo is a little bit quicker, but there is a downside to it, and it is using Blackout A and Startup A. These are a little bit more complicated in terms of how you hit them. There is, oh, and this one's 30-minute wait, by the way, so we're not even going to use that. The Blackout A or the Blackout buttons in general, anytime it says held button equal blackout, I would not recommend that for beginners if you're new to doing this. My friend Hefe is going to have a video up soon about all of these button types and how they work, but for now I'm just going to ignore them. And so we are going to go with this 4-minute or 5-minute seed, really, because it is held button none. So what we're going to do is click open in calibration, and it's going to automatically open the Gen 3 calibration page, and it's going to auto populate with all of these things here. For some reason, I have this set as Game Boy Player. If you accidentally have the setting wrong, just resubmit it, and the times will change slightly. So I'm gonna open again. So everything should be auto-populated. This is the settings, which you have to replicate in your game now. So we're gonna open my options menu, and it says sound is stereo. So I'm gonna set that. And then it says the A button is start. That's what button you're gonna be pushing on the title screen. The L button is L equal A, so we're gonna leave that, and then we're gonna save the game. At this point, the only thing that you're gonna have to do is change the advance range. So the advances is our target here. That's 15,061. So what we want to do is change that to be about 1,000 below and 1,000 above. So 14,061 and 16,061. All right. And then we're going to leave shiny filter blank. This is just for searching to find what target we hit. And then we're going to change this to Mewtwo. All right, perfect. Now that everything here is set up, let's set up Eon Timer. So in Eon Timer, we're going to want to go to the custom tab, and we're going to want to close out anything that might be here. And then you're going to hit plus twice. The first one should be milliseconds, and then the second one unit should be advances. Then you're going to want to go into the settings here and click the timer tab. The timer tab will have options for the console. If you're on a Game Boy Advanced or you're on a Game Boy Player, select GBA. If you are on a DS, DS Lite, or Open AGB firm, click NDS-slot 2. This is very important to do. All right, once you've got that done, what we're going to do is go here and copy the advances and put that into the second timer here. So our advances go there. And then the seed time, we're going to copy that, and we're going to put that in the target section. Now we're all set up to do the manip. You're going to want to leave the calibration page open, and it's time to try and get our Pokemon. So the final thing we have to do before starting our manip is figuring out when we're supposed to press A to encounter the Pokemon, which you would think would be very intuitive, but it's actually not. So we've compiled the list on retailrng.com for when you're supposed to press A. This list is in both the Static Encounter Manip Guide and the Perfect IV Static Manip Guide. If you just click it here, you can see it tells you what dialog box you're supposed to be on before the Pokemon is generated. So for Mewtwo, for example, we scroll down to the Legendaries, you press A, Mew, and then we're going to wait here while our timer counts down, and then when that timer finishes, we press A to start the battle. This is not always the case, though. The Legendary Birds, you press A in front of it. It's actually the A press before their dialogue is generated. For the starter Pokemon, you might think, oh, I'm supposed to press A at the yes or no box for when I want to pick it. No, they're generated after you press A. So it's a bit weird, but yeah, just consult this list for whichever Pokemon you're aiming for, and it should be good enough. And with that said, we're ready to start the manip. I'm on a DS, so I'm going to be starting from the DS title screen. What we're going to do is look at Eon Timer, and we're going to hit start at the same time as we hit A to launch the GBA game. Now, the process for Fire Red and Leaf Green is that we do not touch anything unless it's specified, right? If we had a held button or something like that, don't touch anything until the title screen. We do not want to skip the intro. It is imperative we do not do that. And that is because any button presses that you do can influence the timer 1, which influence the seed. So if I did a button press, my seed could slightly change. It's all based on precision. So when the first timer is going to count down, you're going to hit whatever button the A button is. So mine is the start button. At this point, you're going to get to the final dialog box before your Pokemon. Mewtwo, so I'm going to wait on Mew. Now, Mewtwo, the one that I chose, is a bit of a far wait. So we're going to give that wait time, and then we're going to go into the actual encounter. And I'll pause. Okay, so when the second timer finishes counting down, we're going to hit A to start the encounter. Or receive your Pokemon. Now, it's actually very unlikely you're going to get a shiny the first time, or whatever your target is. And that's because every time you actually encounter a Pokemon, there's a little bit of delay. And what that is the time after you press A to start the encounter, but before the encounter starts. And every Pokemon has a different amount. And also, you're going to have human error. And so we're going to have to dial in on our timing. Why is my timer continuing? That was weird. So let's investigate what Mewtwo that we got. So serious nature. So what we're going to do is we're going to input all of the nature and stat information into the IV calculator built into Gen 3 calibration. Serious, Mewtwo, and then we're going to input the stats. So you put it in the level first, and then you put in all of the stats. Now, Mewtwo's high enough level that you don't actually need to input any like rare candies or anything to get better stat information. But if your Pokemon is lower level, like 30 or below, you might need to input a second level, which you would do by giving it a rare candy. And so I'll show that as an example really quick. So I'm going to go into my bag, give a rare candy to the Mewtwo. It's level 71. And so you make a new row, do 71, and then I do like this, 237, 161, 151, 224, 143, and 210. And, you know, Mewtwo, the stats were already pretty precise, but if you didn't know them, it's just helpful to do. So then you click submit, and you should get some results. The page is a little bit slow. Hopefully we're working on updating that to be a little bit quicker, but eventually you should find a result. And so you can see I hit seed AD7, which is millisecond timing 38630, and I hit advance 14906 when I was aiming for 15061. Now, so I'm not going to calibrate the advances, and I tend to not do that unless I'm on my target seed, which I wasn't. We can see an Eon Timer, I'm aiming for 38546. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this seed, the milliseconds here, we're going to copy that, and we're going to put it into the hit section of our seed in Eon Timer, and we're going to click update. And we're going to get an update here. And we just try again after that. It's the exact same process. And once we hit our seed, then we can start dialing in on our Mewtwo. So start the GBA at the same time as Eon Timer, and I'm going to wait until we're actually close to the timer counting down. Just going to do a cut. Hopefully our timing was a little bit better there. And we wait. Now the downside, this is actually a very popular seed to aim for, the one I'm going for, the modest 31 and everything, because it's usable on multiple different targets, right? This is good for Zapdos, this is good for Articuno and Moltres, honestly. This is good for Mewtwo, this is good for Deoxys, and you can even use it for wild Pokemon, which I'll cover in a different guide. But my point here is that the upside to this seed is that it's a really low wait time. 35846 or whatever it is, that's 35 seconds. That's about the shortest waiting time you could get. You really can't get too shorter than that. The shortest wait time for a seed is about 34 seconds, maybe 33.9 or something like that. But the wait time for the target Mewtwo is like 4 minutes. But it's actually the shortest wait time for a perfect Pokemon in this game, like all 6 stats. So you're not going to get much better than that. And so you can use it to get a lot of target Pokemon, even if you can't get all of them shiny. And if you do have a trainer ID and secret ID that can get one of them shiny, you can get all of them shiny. So you could use this for a bunch of different targets. So even if we're on the correct seed this time, it's still unlikely that you're going to get the shiny. And that's because we we haven't calibrated our advances yet, right? We only calibrated our seed. And that's because the seed timing is sort of linked to the advance timing, right? If you're 2 advances late on the seed, that means that the amount of advances that you have done in the overworld so far are 2 less, right? And so they become kind of desynced. And so that's why you really only want to calibrate once you know that you're on seed. And so we're going to do the exact same thing we did last time, where we just input the Mewtwo stats and stuff like that. So this time we have a timid Mewtwo. Oh, I changed the Pokemon. Oops. All right, so we have timid Mewtwo. And this time I'm only going to put 1 level of stats because Mewtwo only needs it. I just wanted to show you how that worked with the IV calculator. So 152, 222. And we can calculate and see what we got. Like I said, this could take a little bit of time on computers, depending on how slow or good yours is, but I have a pretty powerful one, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so we hit the seed. So BC75 38546 was my target seed. And the advance we hit was 14907. So we were pretty far off on the advance. So let's go calibrate that. So this time, since I hit my target seed, I'm not going to adjust this at all, but I'm going to put it in here. So 14907 is my target advance, and I'm going to click update. And you can see that's quite a big number, but wouldn't worry too much about that. And now we just try a third time. And so hopefully, if we don't get Mewtwo on the next try, we're going to be very close. These numbers, right, the advances and the seed, if we miss, we're only going to be like 1 or 2 late for each of them. And then at that point, it's just a matter of honing in your actual timing. And so we're going to go for a third try. Now at this point, your calibration is done. So, or not done, but as you can see, mine was done. You could have easily gotten your shiny this time. Like I said, once you calibrate the seed and then the advances, you're going to be very, very close to your target. And I was. And so we'll catch this Mewtwo, and I'll show you the stats to prove to you that it is the exact Mewtwo that I was targeting. You should expect, you know, to have some amount of difficulty with this. I've done a million of these RNG Manips, but with proper calibration and use of your timer, you should get your target fairly quickly. It's just, if you're a beginner to this type of thing, you know, 2 frame perfect inputs is not always the easiest thing to get to do. All right, so 250, 162, 152, 266, 152, 208. And we are modest. Calculate these. You can see advance 15061, seed 38546 with BC75. And so that's it. That's how you RNG manip static legendary Pokemon, or like the gift EVs and stuff like that. If this was helpful to you, please consider subscribing or becoming a channel member. And if you are, you know, gonna have a better time with the text guide, consider going to retailrng.com. Our Fire Red and Leaf Green section is pretty much filled out. We even have a advanced guide now on how to actually do what I'm doing here as well. The guides on Retail RNG may slightly differ from what I'm presenting here, and that is in part because these are going to be able to be updated more frequently than what I can do in videos. I'm not the one writing the Fire Red and Leaf Green guide. That's my friend Papa Hefe, right? So we might have slightly different procedures, but they should both be, you know, really good resources to help you learn how to do this stuff. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below or join my Discord and get some help there. Bye.